And uploading. CPU at 20%. I don't know why CPU's at 20%.
Huh. We probably should have made sure you had these in the right order, shouldn't we?
May have helped. Yeah.
They're pretty much in the order that I sent them, with the exception of we're not doing the NSA one.
Oh, okay.
Just because, yeah.
Yeah.
One of those. It's common sense. Don't take things home from the NSA to study them.
Yeah, good advice.
In fact, just don't take, proprietary information from any employer home to study, because you're probably going to get fired.
Usually does happen that way, yeah.
But when it's the NSA, you definitely shouldn't.
If you don't get fired, you could definitely still end up sued or in jail.
Yeah.
Okay, so no NSA staffer?
No NSA staffer.
Okay. Simple enough.
Simple
We're
enough.
already live streaming, I can see.
Yes, we're already live.
Hey, we're live.
Right.
Live, loud, and local, coming from Charlie's living room.
Among other places.
So we're going to do an actual intro, or we're just going to, nix an article at the beginning of our session and carry on like nothing happened.
I don't know. See, we never really came to a decision if we wanted to do a intro type thing or not. We were running around the idea of a dial-up modem. But that was about it.
So as much as I like that because of nostalgia and whatnot, and it's funny, we also want to drive people to watch our webcast.
Yeah.
I have a feeling the first 30 seconds consisting of is going to just drive people the other direction. They're going to be like, you know what, I'm just going to
What the hell is this shit?
video.
Very well could be, yeah.
So as entertaining as it was last time, it's probably not a good idea to continue.
Okay. But that might be something that we could look into in the future, is having an actual intro video that we can spin up and have theme music and, I don't know.
You can make it in Flash.
We can't play it.
God,
Nobody will be able to see it. Although I did recently have to install Flash on my system here, because I needed to connect into VMware.
Oh.
And the only way to manage a VMware server is either with their Windows-only player, so that doesn't work very well.
The latest versions of ESXi actually have an HTML5 version.
Oh, they do?
Yes.
Okay. That would
I
be...
think 6.5 actually has an HTML5 version.
Okay. That would be nice to know then. I may have to call my data center provider and give them a hard time about that.
Yeah. Yeah, because there is one that's HTML5.
Okay. Unfortunately, since VMware is running their entire system, not only at this data center, but nationwide, it may be difficult to get them to upgrade, but
Yeah.
I can at least ask.
Yep. Worst they can do is say no.
Yeah, maybe they have a pilot program that a few of their vColo hosts are separate from the rest and can be upgraded independently. Maybe. Worth a shot.
Yeah,
So-
there you go, Charlie. I will actually send that over to you. Link to it. And for those of you who are watching as we're just mindlessly rambling and haven't really started officially watching our webcast,
Yeah.
VMware and vSphere are, and ESXi are all kind of ESXi and vSphere are all kind of a platform for virtualization or virtual computers and servers from VMware. VMware is one of the main companies that provides virtualization technologies. Personally, I prefer Proxmox or VirtualBox, but VirtualBox is more of a guest-based or host-based, like on a local system. You don't really use it for server production stuff. Same with like VMware's Workstation and smaller and the systems or software that's basically more targeted towards your end user or developer or something of that nature.
Yeah.
Whereas vSphere is your enterprise environment.
Now, you mentioned VirtualBox is not used in production. Well,
At least I never have.
if
I
you,
suppose you could use headless and everything on a server, and
well, yeah, but I mean, if you run Docker in production, you're running VirtualBox.
not really. It actually, like, if you run Docker on Windows, it actually uses Hyper-V. It actually uses Hyper-V. You cannot actually run VirtualBox after you set up Docker for Windows on a Windows computer. I know, because my Windows 10 computer cannot run VirtualBox anymore. Everything runs in Hyper-V.
Why can't I run VirtualBox?
Because for whatever reason, Windows 10 cannot allow you to have Hyper-V and VirtualBox both run. It basically blue screens. Because I was like, oh, it let me open VirtualBox. I can still spin up my old development VM. And I hit start, and then I got a blue screen of death. I was like, well, I got the Windows 10 version, which is basically like, I think it's a green or purple screen, and it has basically a frowny face. It's like, this is helpful.
Oh, yes, I remember that one.
Wow. Does it at least have any helpful diagnostic information on the page?
I think it might still give you an X code, but it's hard to get past the frowny face at that point. You're just like, all right, whatever I did, I don't want to do it again. The fact that my computer is using emoticons and error messages bothers me.
What's wrong with this world?
And it's not from Chrome.
Yes.
Because at least Chrome gives you a running dinosaur or something.
Yes, the
Yes.
running dinosaur.
Yeah.
Which,
That's a fun
although
game.
it throws, although it throws everything out of order for our little articles, it's actually a great way to start into everything. Google does love their Easter eggs.
Yes.
And for those of you who are not familiar, Charlie, if you want to actually open up a web browser and show the little dinosaur game, if you go to Chrome:// I think it's Dino, it'll actually take you to the dinosaur game. And then it's basically one of the old side-scroller style
There it is.
games where you...
Very top.
Oh, the offline. So my browser that I have set up is actually Firefox. Chrome is my kind of off-stream browser. So, but we can do this. Spacebar to start. No, wait, that literally scrolls the page. Okay.
Press spacebar to start and jump your dino. Use down arrow.
Yeah, there you go. So this is basically what it does. If you happen to actually use...
You're doing so good, Charlie. Keep it up.
Woo.
So originally
Fail.
you only get this and it shows up is if your internet happens to go down when you're in the middle of browsing or something like that, and it's Chrome's way of entertaining you until your internet comes back.
Pretty much.
So they
yeah.
give you those little side scroller. Oh, it ducks? I didn't know it did that.
It ducks.
I've always just jumped over things.
So you can
Usually I'm
go
not
to
that good at it.
chromedino.com.
Yeah.
So, but it will actually, Chrome plays it natively, and if you happen to have Chrome, you can actually go into the address bar, and Chrome has all these special Chrome URLs, and if you go to Chrome:// I think it's Dino, it'll actually take you to this, so you can even play it when your internet's actually working. But the reason this comes up is because they have now done another thing, more driven towards developers rather than end users, or Charlie, at this point, who's actually doing quite well. Oh, is that one of the ducks from Duck Hunt?
Yeah.
Well, goodbye. This stream is now turned into a gaming stream.
Should this be on Twitch? Anyway, while Charlie continues to play that,
I'm trying to jump on the birds to see if it does anything, but yeah. Oh well.
it'll kill you. So Chrome has added a new feature in the dev tools for developers now. And it looks like it's a text-based adventure game. So if you happen to do a Google search for text adventure and then bring up your developer tools, it will ask you if you want to play a game. And I really haven't played around with it too much, but I did play and make sure that it actually worked, and I'm using Chrome 69, and it did pop up and ask me if I wanted to play a game. I just didn't actually follow through with it, but one of these days when I have some free time and can actually sit there and follow down that rabbit hole, I will play around with it, but it does look... It's interesting that they're now adding something into the developer tools as well as just your web browser.
And it works in any browser, too. It'll work in Firefox as well.
It does?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Oh, the text adventure thing?
Yeah.
I did not realize that. That's cool. So it's actually built into Chrome's or Google's website then. It's not actually built into the Chrome web browser. Yeah, bring up your developer tools.
Warning, do not... Wait, clearly. Would you like to play a game?
Nice.
Yes. Type a single word. No need to describe the object. For example, grab banana peel. Should just be grab, or use banana peel should just be use. Ah, splendid.
Probably change this to you, Charlie, instead of me, since it's you playing.
Oh, but that way I can see your reaction as I'm playing. I don't know. Let's see.
Where are your friends?
Look. Map legend.
Your G.
Oh, okay.
This is very strange.
Okay. You walk north. A sidewalk circles around a palm tree. Oh, there it is. It actually has a little map. Okay.
Neat.
Yeah, that's cool. You see a map on a bench. Type grab to pick it up. Okay. Look, map. Nope.
Nope.
Nope. Yeah, I've never been great with, oh shit. Don't hit question mark. Oh, use map.
Ah.
Might help if I'm down here. Nope. I don't know.
Just type map.
Ah, okay, yeah. Oh, that actually gives you a whole little thing.
And you're the G.
Yeah, I see that.
You can go north, west, or south.
A horde of lost nooglers, aka new Googlers, surround you and ask how to get around. Type use to give them your map and help them out. Well, then I'd lose my map, though.
Well, then type south.
Alright.
I feel like something at some point is just going to say you've been killed by a Gru.
They gratefully accept. Now they know, and they immediately leave. You, on the other hand, feel a bit lost.
Oh.
Well, clearly, because I... Oh, well.
Those
Oh,
Google, damn you!
But an exit appeared to the north. Ooh. Okay, yeah, so... This is a text adventure game. You can spend way too long playing video games.
Which is exactly why I have not had a chance to actually check it out yet, because I got started, made sure that it worked, and was like, huh, I'll have to mention that on our little webcast, and then I figured, that's sufficient enough for now. I need to get back to work.
Yeah. So what that looks like it's doing behind the scenes, when you go to google.com, it's loading in a JavaScript file that interacts with your console. So any standard console. This will even work in Internet Explorer, as long as you have the DevTools installed.
Oh, okay.
Because console is a standard development tool that you can interact with. So that JavaScript library is just loading up, or just interacting with it. And I imagine if I click browse into it, yep.
Nice.
Oh look, robot, swords, shields, costumes, fly swatter, stickers, closed doors, precision, recall, bug. So yeah, you can look at the source code, more or less.
Because it's Java.
Script.
Right.
JavaScript.
JavaScript, I'm sorry.
Two very different things.
You ask to
I
trade
know,
for your
gosh.
latte.
Talking to techies is so annoying sometimes.
Laying in the middle of the path is a crocodile costume. So you can at least read the commands and
That's kind of cheating.
what all possibilities. Well, yeah. How else do you play a game? Grab the source code. You start
It just
looking-
reminds me of like
Yeah.
getting access to Hack the Box.
Yeah. You grab source code, start sifting through what all it does, find all the hidden paths. That way you know where to go.
I see.
Yeah.
Which, have you played around with that, Charlie? Have you joined Hack the Box?
No, I have not.
It's fun.
It's fun.
Hack,
Well, it's
Hackbox?
kind of like
Hackbox?
Hack the Box.
Hack the box.
Yes. Give me a second. I'll get you the actual. It's hackthebox.eu. the reason why I said it reminds me of Hack the Box, and that's all I'm going to say on the matter, is because you actually, well, I don't want to spoil it, because to get access to Hack the Box, it's a free, which they have paid for priority access, hacking labs, for pen testing labs for different devices.
Oh, okay.
And to get access to it, you can't just join. You actually have to basically hack your way in to get a join code, which involves some knowledge of web applications to get access. But it's actually quite fun, and it's very, very interesting, and they have a lot of different machines. They swap them out about once a month. So for anybody that's looking at getting into pen testing or wants to know more about security auditing, or even defending for that matter, and seeing some of the things that are in there, a lot of people use it as preparation for going for your OSCP or something of that nature. Some of them are actually even more difficult than OSCP boxes. Charlie, let's not live stream the you hack the box's website to get your access code. That way people still have to figure it out on their own.
Aw.
I'm sure that somebody already has.
You probably, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just kind of one of those... It's not as rewarding if you do that. It's better if you figure it out on your own.
Oh, that's fun.
But yeah, you have to get through... You can show the... If you just... Charlie, at this point, just go ahead and do a view source on the web page. I mean, it's one of the obvious things. It's kind of like your first hint.
Oh.
And that's really all I'm going to give you.
Okay.
So just right-click on the website and go to view source.
So, yeah, there are two methods. I actually prefer to look at or use the inspector to view the source, but it doesn't always show Easter eggs.
Yes.
So if they put in little fun things, it might not show there, because it actually renders the source code.
Yep. So go ahead and just do a view source real quick.
Yep. So it's all one line.
And I believe if you scroll to the very end, you'll see what I'm referring to. Or maybe it's at the login page. I'm trying to remember where exactly it is.
Login, yeah, because this is just calm.js.
Let me see if I can find it real quick. You'll understand why.
I wonder what this string does.
Invite API.min.js?
Oh.
Click console.
Go back to your console?
Yeah. Click your console.
Yeah, come here.
You'll see it.
Oh, that's where it was. It was in console, not source code.
Then they must have changed it.
Probably.
Yeah, because you can't even do they've disabled the right-click. You can't even do a right-click view source. The previous method was one of those. They had basically the JavaScript library you needed to access, or JavaScript file.
Also,
was
who the fuck right-clicks to view source? Just Control U.
I always just use F12 if I want to bring up developer tools, and I right-click if I want to view source. That's just me, though.
Well, yeah, sure. F12 is your dev console, but Control U is your view source.
Yeah.
That way it just works.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the library they had, because they've changed their whole source. The page looks completely different too. But the old method was basically if you looked at the source code, it was still formatted structurally as you normally see it. Okay. And then there was a little section that basically had a URL that said, remove this from production or whatever, as a little comment code. So that was kind of your little Easter egg, and that's how it gets you started before you have to figure out everything else on your own. There was I think 7 or 8 steps to actually get your access code, but it is kind of fun to do. And like I said, if anybody's actually interested in learning more about how this kind of stuff works, highly recommend the site, especially if they're looking at getting into pen testing. But it is complex stuff, so you're going to need to have some basic understanding of web technologies and everything.
Right. So it's not a beginner level
No.
thing.
No. Read some tutorials, watch some videos, go to something like Cybrary or something and get a basic understanding and familiarity of how a website stuff works. Then you can go and actually get some hands-on experience playing around with this and some of the different boxes.
So I might even recommend try to build your own application in whatever, any web application, just to get a basic idea of how all of the components work with each other and what to look for. And then you'll be able to go here, actually see it in production with the flaws that were intentionally left in, and start looking at it like that.
Yep. Yeah, and there's lots of nice web-based applications out there too to help you learning on a local system, even before you get to this point. Something like Damn Vulnerable Web App. There's also, I think it's called WebGoat from OWASP.
WebGoat?
Yeah, I think OWASP has one. I think it's called WebGoat. But it's another web-based application that's intentionally vulnerable.
Oh, okay.
And I guess since we just kind of dove right into this, we can just go ahead and start diving right back into things.
Sure. Yep.
So one of the things I actually wanted to discuss a little bit further from last week, we didn't have nearly as much exciting news this week, or at least as much in quantity. There is a very big story I want to discuss kind of in depth at the end. But I wanted to touch back on LoJax, because I did some more research on it from last week.
And again, LoJax is the rootkit malware, so it actually infected the main board or the first bootable partition of your hard drive. So it's completely below the operating system level.
Yep. So LoJax was the UEFI rootkit. And one of the things I wanted to clarify specifically about LoJax versus some other rootkits, there are multiple types of rootkits. So typically when I think of rootkit and when I am talking about one, I'm meaning one that is disk independent. One that actually installs on the motherboard, which is basically what this does. There are other types of rootkits that actually just basically install themselves in the boot sector, so that way they persist past or before your actual operating system loads, but it's still on the hard disk. If you replace the hard disk, you can get rid of it. Some of them aren't even to a level of persistence to where, or some of them are at a level of persistence where they'll actually install on the firmware of the hard drive. So even if you reinstall your operating system, they don't actually get rid of the rootkit. So you actually have to replace the hard drive. In the case of LoJax, none of that matters because it actually installs on the, let me see, which section was it? The SPI flash memory of the actual motherboard. And what I really wanted to talk about was the technology they're using for the persistence and where it gets its name. LoJax sounds a lot like LoJack, which LoJack is a technology used for like tracking stolen vehicles and that kind of thing. It's like a GPS tracing thing. Well, there's also a similar type system in a lot of computers now called CompuTrace, which you can actually use to track a stolen device. So you can actually set it up in case your laptop or something stolen, you can track it to them like wherever it comes from, whichever IP or whatever it connects to, or if it happens to have a GPS chip or something built in, or like a CDMA or whatever, cellular chip. So they're using the same type of persistence that like CompuTrace uses for being able to track your stolen device to be able to actually persist with their rootkit. So that was kind of where the LoJax's name came from. But one of the things that I thought was very interesting about it is the only way to actually resolve this, where you can replace your hard drive, you can reinstall your operating system, it doesn't matter what operating system you're using, is you actually have to patch your flash memory on your motherboard.
That is funny.
What?
So Drew's over here continuing work on the
Sorry,
Hack the
I got
Boss site.
distracted. I think I figured it out.
You think? Well, go ahead and try it, and if the invite code works, then you found out.
That can't be right, though.
Why can't that be right?
Because it's base 64. You got to convert it.
Well, clearly, so convert it.
I'm working on I can't copy it. It's really hard to copy.
Click a few times on it.
I tried. It's
It doesn't do it?
It's okay, we got it. It's only like 60 million characters long.
What? No, you don't have the utility installed?
No, I'm a loser.
Other useful tools are being able to convert different formats, such as Base64, on your system. There actually should be a program that ships with an operating system called Base64.
And there's another step. It's a clue.
Yeah, that's how that works.
Wow, this is complicated.
So
like I said, it's not for the faint at heart. You need to have some level of understanding. So it's not something that if you're just interested in learning how computer systems get broken into or that kind of thing, you can't just dart out by trying to break into their website. You need to have some fundamental
Right.
understanding first, which there are lots of resources out there to help you get to that point. But if you're actually at that point and you want to learn more, or you just kind of want to keep your skills honed, Hack the Box is a great place. But I like the fact that you can't just join and then be like, I want to hack the box.
To hack it.
Yeah.
Well, it only makes sense. I mean, yeah.
It's not like VulnHub, though, where you can just go out and download some vulnerable VMs, spin them up, and then play them around. That's another thing that's useful for VirtualBox, is going out to VulnHub, which is a website that has intentionally vulnerable virtual machines. You can download those, run them on your own system in a virtualization platform like VirtualBox or VMware Workstation, and actually use those to try and attack those. One caveat about that, though. With VulnHub, anybody can technically publish these, and there are methods for being able to target a host device through a vulnerable VM. So be very, very cautious. Don't do this on your production system or a system you do banking or that kind of stuff from. Do this on a box that you don't really give a crap about, or that's something that's separate. Like I have a separate, my old desktop. Basically, I have on a completely separate VLAN for my network. And it's basically for this kind of stuff. It's basically segregated off from the rest of the traffic on my network, and I use it for opening intentionally vulnerable VMs or that kind of thing, or basically doing that kind of stuff, so that way I don't risk any of my actual network or my actual systems if I happen to grab a box that's compromises my host machine. If that's the case, I just rebuild. And I don't lose anything other than the other VMs that I had that didn't matter. One thing about a lot of these, if you're kind of just curious what exactly the process is most of these are set up like CTFs, which is a capture the file or capture the flag style setup. So basically you have to compromise the machine by whatever means necessary. Now, one thing about VulnHub, most of the systems are all Linux. On Hack the Box, some of them are actually Windows servers.
Oh, okay.
So you actually do have the cross-platform functionality, which is something you don't normally get in most places. But most of them, you have to compromise the machine somehow, get access to a file, and that's basically how you know you've won or cracked the box.
That at least gives you score that point.
Yes.
And each flag or file that you discover gives you more points. And some of them, the more difficult ones to get, give you more points. Some of them are as trivial as you send a connection on a port number and it returns back a flag. You just have to figure out what port it's listening on. Other ones, you have
and sometimes the ultimate flag is basically getting root.
Yeah.
And maybe that file will help you know of something or give you a hint as to what you can actually do to actually gain root access on that box.
Yeah. Yeah, many of them, they have stepped procedures. So you complete phase 1, it gives you a clue for phase 2. You complete phase 2, gives you a clue for phase 3. That's for the more kind of defined procedural ones, like the procedural games. Other ones on VulnHub, it may just have 5 applications installed that are vulnerable, and you break it at your leisure.
Yeah.
So there may not be as much hand-holding going on. What do you registering? Oh, no, just go to VulnHub. Not to be confused with other hub-based sites.
Like what?
Yeah, you don't want to go to Docker Hub. That's not going to help you here.
Oh man, that would be That would be awful.
Docker Hub. Docker Hub's where you go get Docker images.
Vuln Hub. VULN. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. A vulnerable.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
vuln as in vulnerable. Yeah. Yeah, so you can search for different VMs. You can just browse and see which one looks appealing. And they're made by different
Some of
people,
them come
so-
with walkthroughs, some of them don't. So if you do get stuck and you're trying to figure something out, again, it is a learning experience. It's not like it's an actual pen test or something like where you're...
Right.
So, I mean, it is something that if you get stuck, obviously don't just read the walkthrough because then you don't learn anything. But if you get stuck and you're trying to figure out something, there are times that you basically just bang your head up against a desk and trying to figure out what exactly the problem is. Ultimately, going back to that can help.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the old walkthroughs for video games. I don't even know if that's a thing anymore.
I'm sure it is.
Only from Bethesda.
Yeah. Yeah, I was about to say Fallout
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
a good walkthrough.
Yeah, all of the other game publishers like EA, notoriously EA,
Mm-hmm.
they don't care about walkthroughs, they don't care about gameplay, they don't care about content, they just care about microtransactions.
Yeah, pretty much.
Bunny ears,
So-
bunny ear costumes would be a good microtransaction that they would have, yeah.
For $5.99, you can see me put bunny ears on Charlie for the whole stream.
Yeah.
Please don't pay it because I don't want to hold my hand here for an hour.
I remember when that just used to be a cheat code in something like 007 GoldenEye or whatever,
Yeah.
where you basically made everybody have giant heads or
Oh
whatever.
yeah.
Or, made turn everybody into a Nali Warcow or one-hit kills for the shock rifle.
Yep.
Freaking Unreal Tournament.
No, as long as nobody else wore the Warcow, I was fine.
Yeah, I know. I remember that. Basically, your one-shot kills to the kneecaps sucked.
Yeah. And good luck getting a headshot on a little tiny pig.
Pretty much. For those of you that have grown up since like the late 90s, early 2000s, we're referring to a game called Unreal Tournament, specifically the Game of the Year edition, where they still had Nali Warcows, which were little like pig things that ran around with a gun on their back. And
Yep.
basically it's a first-person shooter similar to Halo or whatever some of those games that kids play these days are for shooters. I know Halo at this point is like golden age stuff, so
It was the original deathmatch.
yeah, pretty much. It and Quake.
Well, yeah, Quake, that's true.
But yeah, basically you had this little thing that was about knee high running around and trying to shoot and shooting you. And Charlie was notorious for playing as a Nali Warcow. And basically you'd play as these regular people that stood up full size and you're running around looking for things at eye height. And here's Charlie running around popping people in the kneecaps and killing them. So unless you were looking around at the ground when you were trying to run around and shoot things, you didn't even see him until it was too late.
And this was back in the day before you could play video games on the internet.
Pretty
Yeah,
much.
we
just
have
a
LAN
little-
parties.
Yeah, we had to bring all the computers together, hook them all up, and scream loudly and get hit with pickles.
Yep.
That was pretty much just you with the pickle part.
Yeah.
But
Or
anyway, back to
get left
back to LoJax.
trunks.
Actually, this might be an idea for some other like special event where we have a LAN party hosted somewhere. We have one or several cameras set up throughout the facility, just live streaming a bunch of us playing video games at a LAN party, like UT
Yes!
Classic.
We could do that.
Yeah.
And also, UT Classic will actually run in wine.
Why do you even need one? It's native.
Excuse me?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure UT, the classic Unreal Tournament, just has a native Linux binary.
I didn't know this. I'm going to have to go look. No, I've always ran it in wine, and it plays fine.
Well,
'Cause
yeah.
it's,
You know what? I own that game on Steam. Let's find out.
I don't know if the Steam version is a Linux native.
No, it's not.
Okay. Because I have Quake was the same thing. I purchased Quake on Steam, expecting it to work because it works like the game client works natively. But whatever version they ship, they don't include the Linux binaries. So yeah, sorry, not to derail the entire conversation here, but
I mean, it's not all that organized. It's basically us just rambling on about technology in some way, shape, or form. But
yeah,
mainly, usually security lately. But
yeah, war games and actual FPS games are technology, so
It counts.
yep, counts.
exactly.
All right, back to this
Low jacks.
low jacks
Yes.
that is not low jack.
Yes.
Correct.
It's hacked low jacks.
It's
It's a vulnerability tool using the same concept that LoJax uses.
Yep.
yeah. It basically uses like something similar to CompuTrace, which is kind of like a low jack functionality built into most modern computers. So that way, basically, you can track it if it's stolen.
But this is a third-party application, right?
Correct.
Okay.
It's just using that same type of functionality for its persistence.
And this
which is why
functionality that they're using is not actually how it was meant to be, how the technology was meant
Correct.
to be used.
Correct.
They
Basically,
they found a workaround, and to use something in a way it wasn't meant to be used.
which is the definition of hacking.
Well, yeah, but then they made a legitimate product out of it that they're selling companies using this workaround. And then LoJax saw the method, used the same method for malware.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, CompuTrace is one of the, I think there's other names for it too, but basically it's that tracking functionality that's built in. So that way if somebody does steal your computer and they swap the hard drive out, so that way, you know, all the information, in case you had like a callback thing once it connected.
Yeah.
Just like, for example, a lot of enterprise software, the endpoint protection, it actually connects and phones home regularly. Windows itself does this kind of thing. Most Adobe products do this kind of thing for annoying reasons. But
Yeah.
so basically, to try and subvert that, even if they swap it out and put it in a different hard drive and try and sell it on the black market, you can still trace back that computer.
So
Because
how does this get installed? How is it that the OS can write to the ROM?
you need to have access. Now, back in the day, everything was true, like read-only style memory, where you didn't really have a way of writing to that. Well, since, especially with all the hardware vulnerabilities as of late, you have to be able to write there to patch that type of equipment, so that way it's the most up-to-date. Because just as with your operating system or your third-party applications like Flash, Java, Office, all that kind of stuff needs to be updated, so too does the hardware now at this point, with latest releases, specifically with your motherboard and firmware on like your router or something like that. So to be able to update those, they've simplified that process of allowing the operating system to be able to use certain utilities to write to that firmware. Because the old way was basically you had to have something on a flash drive and be able to boot into that, and then you had to actually go into the BIOS, or in this case UEFI, and actually go through and select this file, install it, blah, blah, blah. That's too difficult for most end users, so they gear it towards, there's a utility already installed in your computer that basically does this and writes to it.
So this is a binary that you run as the user in user land, with standard user permissions, and your main board, it has system calls to read out information, but then they've also added ones to write in information.
Gotcha.
For purposes of BIOS flashing. So
So the ROM is no longer ROM. It's just
Correct.
flash.
Right.
Correct.
Yep. Flash memory.
It's NVRAM, so non-volatile RAM.
Yeah, so they're using this technique of flash updates that are usually for legitimate purposes to add code.
And then, of course, they have it's signed, so Windows won't recognize it because the driver is signed.
Well, no, it's not a driver.
Yes, well, there's some kind of digital rights management going
Maybe.
on, but it's signed illegitimately. If you look at it, it shows.
There might be rights to it, but if the mainboard manufacturer never implemented that, and they just accept any compatible code to be dropped onto the circuit or into the flash memory, it'll just...
Now, most PCs have Secure Boot enabled. Does it get around Secure Boot?
Well, that's after
Yes.
this.
So that's for your actual boot. That's not. This is even before that point.
Gotcha.
Because when UEFI first came out, and I actually it was around the time that Windows 7 came out.
So Secure Boot isn't secure?
Well, here's the thing. When Secure Boot was first set up, it actually Windows had a lot of agreements with the manufacturers of equipment so that you couldn't run anything other than Windows. So if you wanted to install Linux, you had to disable Secure Boot.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's still the case
right.
today many times.
For the most part, yeah.
Now, like the latest version of Linux Mint 19, I know it actually only works like for dual booting if it's actually set up as Secure Boot. Because I actually had some issues with that trying to run Windows 10 and Linux Mint 19 on side by side. It actually like just refused to boot into Grub until I actually installed it as with Secure Boot, and then everything worked fine. Because I had Secure Boot turned off on my motherboard because I've had issues with that in the past.
Interesting. Yeah, I had it the other way around. I think it was an Acer mainboard.
Yeah, it was Acer was the first one I had that issue with, and I had to turn it off.
Well, so I dropped in an aftermarket graphics card into the system, and I had to disable Secure Boot because that graphics card wasn't digitally signed with a Secure Boot whatever the fuck driver. And so the system would power on, but it would not. It wouldn't post. It wouldn't do anything. It would just power up and be dead.
Yep.
Wow.
So I had to remove the card, go into the BIOS so it would actually load anything, disable it, shut it down, put the card back in, start it back up, and then it worked.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Fucking Secure Boot. Actually, fucking Trusted Computing. That kind of started the whole ordeal down this rabbit
trusted
hole.
platform modules and all that kind of stuff, yeah. Which is a mess in and of itself.
Yeah.
Because trusted computing only means trusted computing as far as who has the most money to spend on trusted computing.
Mm-hmm.
And who has the private keys.
Yeah. Which is actually great to lead into a slightly different topic. Speaking of trusted keys, one of the ways we know of who we're actually communicating with is certificates and certificate authorities. Well, one of the latest phishing attacks, and that's one of the things we stressed when we're usually doing end-user training for phishing attacks, is if you see a site that looks like maybe, say, google.com or your bank or Microsoft Azure, basically make sure that the site is where you think it is, and you can even check the certificate and make sure that it's, assigned to Microsoft.com or Google.com or yourbank.com. Well, so one of the latest phishing attacks.
It doesn't show the pop-up. Oh well. I tried to show what it is because in the address bar you have a green lock that if you click on, it will show the certificate, but the stream doesn't pick that up. So never mind.
Yeah, and if you actually view the certificate, it'll tell you basically who it's assigned to, when it expires, when it was assigned, who the certificate authority is, so all that kind of stuff. But one of the recent phishing attacks has actually started using Azure's blob storage. And Azure is basically a cloud version of VMware ESXi or vSphere kind of thing. It's basically a cloud-based virtualization platform for spinning up your servers and doing it in the cloud. So Azure has blob storage, which is kind of similar to like your OneDrive storage, where you can store files and stuff so that you can have other people can have access with them. You can share them either among VMs or among other people that maybe access your systems. Well, the problem with that is that is signed because it is a Microsoft product with a Microsoft certificate. So attackers have started using that certificate as validation that it is a valid Microsoft site for some of their phishing campaigns. Because if you look, it's going to show that it's signed by Microsoft because it's technically a Microsoft site. So I'm not quite sure how they're going to deal with this, or if there is even is an effective way of dealing with it. Because they're basically using this to host malicious files or pages for sites, and it looks like it's a Microsoft site. I mean, it's a subdomain of a subdomain, but it's still a Windows.net website, and it's a valid certificate.
Yeah, it's valid. It is signed.
Yeah, Microsoft or Google did a similar issue or a similar thing, where any user-supplied content is not hosted on Google.com. It's hosted on GoogleUserFiles.com or something like that. Okay. So even the top-level certificate does not match Google. So even though it's hosted at Google, the top-level domain is completely different.
So really, Microsoft's solution to this should be they should have it as a separate
Yeah,
TLD or upper-level domain,
yeah,
and then have that signed rather than Microsoft.com or Windows.net.
yeah. So instead of OneDrive.blob.core.windows.net, it should be user.windows or Microsoft userfiles.com or something.
Okay,
So that way
that makes more sense.
it's not a Microsoft certificate.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's... Attackers are continuously getting more and more effective and coming up with better and better ideas. And a lot of the times it's just finding something simple that, like, Microsoft did this so that way all of your files were going to show up as, secured and signed by a trusted certificate without thinking of the potential impact of malicious
This isn't
intent.
something new.
No.
Like, this has been a problem since web came out in about, 1986.
Charlie? How up on the web has Microsoft been?
True.
Nothing
Yeah.
against them. They do have great products sometimes for certain things.
No, they don't.
But,
No.
Charlie, this kind of goes back to the WordPress conversation from last week. For a lot of things, they do have some great products. However, they've always been a little behind when it came to the web. I mean, look at the Internet Explorer from a web developer's perspective forever. I mean, Edge is a little bit better because it's pretty much like IE's version of Chrome, or Microsoft's version of Chrome. It renders things almost identical for most ways.
So the big question is it actually running Chrome under the hood?
If it is, they've bypassed the UNC path issue that Chrome has. So UNC pathing is basically if you have a Windows server or Windows file server, you can basically just browse directly to that server. So say it's like eval fs is the host name. You can actually do / eval fs, and then it'll browse to the public directory or whatever access you have. Well, Internet Explorer works to open those as links, as does Edge. However, Chrome and Firefox, without some third-party extension, they don't, because it's considered a secure vulnerability, because you may be file browsing out to some internet-based website that you're basically going to just execute some malicious code. So they're trying to prevent that by blocking UNC pathing for a direct link. But Edge still opens those. But from the history of the web, Internet Explorer has notoriously not had... Did you get it?
Hey! He got to page 2.
Yay.
So you can now register?
I can now register, I think. It might try to trick me again.
Might.
Yeah.
How long have we been streaming? How long did it take him to get that?
Just make sure
That's not
that
bad.
when you submit this, you're watching the post data over there, because it's probably going to show something revealing. Or, if you want to be even sneakier, yes.
I just now noticed we have some comments.
As Solar mentioned, and the purpose of Internet Explorer, the sole purpose of Internet Explorer is to download Google Chrome.
Well said, Solar. I agree. That's usually the first thing I do on a brand new Windows system that has not been built from an image is open Internet Explorer, google.com/Chrome.
Oh, it's so
Although
true.
Microsoft's making it more and more difficult as time goes on.
Yes, now if you go to the Chrome website on an Edge browser, it pops up and tells you about how Microsoft
Wonderful
Edge is 9
edges.
times faster than
Yeah,
Chrome.
it
and
takes you to a
Firefox.
Microsoft advert.
It's like, please use Edge.
and then,
Pretty much.
Like,
And then you
Microsoft's
install
getting
Chrome.
desperate.
Well,
and then you
Edge
install
is-
Chrome, and you're like,
Edge is so grabby, it frustrates me. Like, it tries to be everything. It's like, you need a PDF browser? Use Edge. You need a web browser? Use Edge.
Yeah. And,
You need a video player? Use Edge.
yeah. And I have a client that I installed Chrome for her, got it set to the default, but the fucking search box in the operating system, it still will default to Edge.
Yep.
And there's no way around that. It's frustrating.
You have to go with Windows 10 now. You have to go into settings, and it's kind of like an iPhone or something like that. You have to actually go into settings and set it as a default program.
I did.
You have to find the settings for Cortana and set the default search to Chrome or whatever it is. Yeah.
So Cortana, whatever, also has its own settings, separate from the OS's default settings.
Pain in the arse. That's why just nobody uses Cortana.
Well, if you use Windows, then you use Cortana.
No, I've disabled it.
It comes back.
Yeah.
It does come back. That is true. Every time you freaking update Windows, it comes back. It's
on enterprise
evil.
systems too. It's frustrating.
Yes, even on enterprise. Well, is it enterprise that you can remove it?
I guess when I say enterprise systems, I'm meaning like Pro and up.
Oh, okay. Windows Pro,
Windows
it will come
Enterprise
back.
is literally the only version you can actually eliminate that crap from.
Yeah, but supposedly Enterprise is persistent to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Well,
Windows Pro, as typically has been used by professionals in the past, you've always had more functionality and that kind of thing. You've always been able to remove some of the extra garbage that you couldn't remove in like the home version. Even in Pro, if you disable those things like Cortana and whatnot, they still come back with every update. It's freaking annoying. Because even if they're joined to a domain, and you're using like WSUS or SCCM to push out those updates, it still goes back.
But as long as all Windows systems ship with Xbox adverts, you're good. Because everybody knows that... Users must not share in any way of the solutions to the machines or challenges included in the website. Oh, that's normal, yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying that you probably don't want to stream that.
Well, right.
Mike might have been right.
Well, it's that, and also it's meant there to learn and teach people things.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't want to take that away from people, because if you do, I mean, it kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't want that to be streamed, and I didn't want to necessarily share too much about that.
Right. But giving an intro to a platform or to a product.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, for one, it increases their customer base.
Yeah.
And they do have a pay-for platform, so you can get priority access to their... Because you basically use OpenVPN once you're actually in to get into their lab environment, so that way you can play around with. Which, by the way, I highly recommend. The way you get into their lab environment is using something like Kali. Don't use your production system to get into a VPN network full of hackers and vulnerable VMs. It's a bad idea.
Because guess what happens when you take a system and you join it to a virtual private network that has many other people in it.
Also, make sure
you're all
have
on
your
the same
firewall
network.
Yeah.
Hello, Shirley.
There are ways to prevent that, but there's no guarantee they did that.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the things when you download their little OVPN file is you are, while we like forbid people to hack other players, you are joining a network full of hackers.
Use
precautions.
Yeah.
You are in the wild, wild west.
Yeah, pretty much.
Nothing can save you. Which,
And that goes
for that,
with-
you just set up a VM, right?
Yeah.
Typically.
Yeah, usually I run Kali in a VM and then use that VM copy. Basically, I have a shared folder that I can copy files back and forth between my Kali VM just for when I'm doing pen tests and whatnot. And then basically you just copy that OVPN file over there and then execute it on your system or on the Kali VM rather than your local system.
Yeah. See, if you ran Kali on an Apple device, or if Apple made Kali, then it would just be nice enough to sync all of those files to all of your other devices. Just on the fly, right?
I should also specify that I have a completely separate laptop that I do this on. I have a field laptop that is actually an old T430S that I got that basically I just use for field work, going out, setting up networks, that kind of thing. And it's what does it. It doesn't have any access to any of my banking or any of that kind of information because, again, it goes back to the same thing like I do with the Bone Hub. The things I encounter may compromise that device, and I want it just to at most compromise that device.
Solar Cloud. I actually have a friend who just mentioned that he's having that kind of issue. So I'll talk to him and tell him to disable Cortana and see if that fixes the problem. Thanks for that. Sorry to interrupt you, Mike.
No, you're good.
Oh, wait.
No, and we need to get, we've been going at this for I don't know how long at this point, but there's a couple more things. And one of the things I wanted to actually spend a lot of time discussing. One of the things kind of more of as a warning of the kind of things that are out there. Recently, there was a security researcher that received a phone or voice phishing scam call. I don't remember who exactly it was. I remember reading it actually on Twitter like right after it happened. But so voice phishing or vishing, if you want to call it that, is basically like, essentially it's a scam phone call. They've been around for, since the first like Ma Bell system came up and people were able to call one another. So it's nothing necessarily new, but the tactics have got a lot more sophisticated. It's no longer just the Nigerian prince that wants you to send him monies. Now they actually have personal information about you that they can use to try and get you to actually give them the information they want so that they can do whatever it is they're trying to accomplish. A lot of times the phone phishing type scams are usually the Microsoft type scams, where basically you'll get a call from some Microsoft representative who's basically saying, we've seen malicious activity on your computers. Please allow us remote access and we will fix your system and we'll only charge you $200, $300. Usually what they do is they have you break a bunch of stuff on your computer to show you that there is actually something malicious on there. They'll be like, show system. Okay, see where it says basically this architecture? That means you're infected. And it's actually just the architecture of your computer. They have all sorts of things online about how these guys basically do this kind of stuff to try and get you to give them access to their system, or your system, excuse me. And that way they can either put something persistent on there to make it part of a botnet, or capture your login credentials or banking account information, and they also charge you money for it. So that's typically what you see in the phone phishing scams. However, now they're using data breach information to actually be a little more accurate. In this particular situation, they spoofed this person's banking phone number, so it looked like it actually came from his bank, which spoofing a phone number is not nearly as complicated as it sounds, which is also why you should be cautious of anytime you receive a phone call from someone and they're asking for confidential information, don't just provide that over the phone. Contact the entity they're claiming to be through the means that you would normally contact them. Don't take their word for it that they're calling from them, and at the same time, don't call any numbers they give you. Same thing, don't send them any information via an email address or whatever that they give you either. But basically they called, said they were from his bank, spoofed his bank's phone number, said this is your account number, this is your social security number, all kinds of information that have been from recent breaches such as like Exactus or even last year's Equifax breach. All those kinds of confidential information. And then basically said, we've seen some fraudulent activity on your account. We would like to change the PIN and everything on your account. And he's like, okay, well, this kind of all makes sense. This is all valid information. And then they get to the point where they ask him for his PIN. And this is the thing. It took this for a security researcher to even get to catch on that this was something suspicious. Which, I mean, we all say to be paranoid, but there's times when we're not all that paranoid because maybe we just woke up, or maybe we've had a bad day and we're not thinking straight. It does happen. But for people who are not familiar with these types of attacks and what kind of information attackers actually have, this is an even bigger threat. But basically, the fact that they asked what his PIN was, he's like, you're my bank. You should know what my PIN is. So he's like, you know what, hold on. I'm going to, check into this. And he basically ended up finding out that they were not who they said they were. And he called his actual bank, and no, there was no fraudulent activity on his account. They had not called him or anything like that. So it's something else to look out for. But, I mean, there's a lot of people, I'm sure, that have fallen for this, and even for the less sophisticated scams. But basically, when you're a part of a data breach, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to steal your identity. They may use it to try and extort other information out of you. And that's more so what I've seen as a result of like the Equifax breach. Because, again, selling stuff on the black market, data and identities, while it's very profitable, it's still a business market. You still have supply and demand. And if you suddenly have 150 million identities that are available, that cuts down on the price that you're getting for those. So maybe it makes more sense to use that to extort other information. And that's kind of my ramble, rant, informative, whatever.
So this is kind of a social engineering attack.
Correct.
In that aspect, I think the best thing that you can do to protect yourself is, don't give out any personal information on the phone. If you do think it's legitimate, hang up and call the number on the back of your card. Another thing you could do is call the bank and say, what information do you not ask for on the phone? Because a lot of times you'll get information that says, we will never ask for your password, or, you know, so if you know right away, we'll never ask for your PIN number. Oh, okay. And then if they ask for it, you know that something's wrong, and that's a big red flag. So.
Or just never answer phone calls.
Or, just never, like Charlie. Yeah. Literally. I don't even know why I have his phone number. It's useless.
I don't even know if I have his phone number anymore. I use Discord for every sort of communication with him.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, because the level of difficulty
the government
of setting
doesn't track that yet.
Well, no guarantees there, but yeah, the level of difficulty of setting a phone number for your outbound caller ID is you go into your application, into your phone system, and you just type in the phone number that you want to show.
You can actually do it. There's apps for that in the App Store.
Yeah.
You can actually do it with your cell phone.
Yeah, I was updating the dialer, our phone system over the week, and I messed up and only typed in a partial for the outbound phone number. And when I was doing my testing, I just got a phone number from 61 because I didn't type in the rest of the number, so it just readily accepted just 2 digits for the phone number.
Yeah. Not good.
Yeah. But that's by design.
Yep. So the last thing I wanted to talk about has been probably the biggest security news of the week. And the problem with it is some of the stuff is still unverified. So I want to talk about it from a hypothetical standpoint. I don't want to talk about anything as particularly fact yet until we know more. But specifically, the allegations are that a large motherboard manufacturing company, Supermicro, has had devices, so their main manufacturing of boards comes from China. And China, from a governmental standpoint and a business standpoint, Bloomberg's the one that published this, and there's actually, we'll make sure we provide the link to the article, because it is very detailed on the whole history thing. It's a very long article. Brian Krebs also wrote about it in a more abridged version if you don't have the time to actually read the whole thing. But essentially, they build the motherboard chips and everything in China and then ship them to Supermicro, and they build basically the rest of the components and stuff in and ship them off to whatever companies they use. And Supermicro is one of the biggest motherboard manufacturing companies in the world. So, allegedly, China was, as part of production, building on these tiny microchips that had a capability of basically, this is your persistence, this is your backdoor into the system and the environment. Was this tiny chip that had the ability of doing network access and everything, not so much to exfiltrate data per se by itself, but to allow them remote access to the system. And supposedly these were being put on servers that went to companies like Apple and Amazon, as well as governmental facilities. And I kind of digressed off of what my point was, but China, from a business and a country perspective, China basically behaves as if those are one entity. While the United States is a government, or it has a government entity, and then we have businesses that have their own little subsections, and they're treated separate. Like business and government are separate entities here. Whereas in China...
Are they anymore?
Well, I mean, you can get into the whole lobbyist... You can get into the whole lobbying and that kind of thing aspects, and who basically is... I always like the joke that politicians need to be like NASCAR, where they basically have all the labels on everybody who sponsors them to be there, so that way you know what you're paying for or what you're getting. But I mean, it's still a separation. Yeah, these people may be putting money in the pockets of politicians and whatnot. Business and government are still separate entities here. China, they're the same thing. Mm-hmm. They basically are treated as the same thing because of how their economy works and how their government structure works. So it may not necessarily be from a governmental perspective that they're trying to spy on U.S. government for things when they're putting these chips in, or when they're doing a lot of things. They may strictly be trying to get ahead of United States companies and corporations by getting access to their private information or their research data or that kind of thing. So, nation-state style attacks aside, there may be other business reasons why this kind of thing would be happening. And the reason that I wanted to say that I wanted to discuss this from an allegations perspective and strictly hypothetical is because while there have been some researchers and everything that have come forward and several reporters that have basically said this is inaccurate information and that they've spoken with people who've verified this, And a lot of the people that I follow on Twitter from a security standpoint have agreed that, hey, they know some of the individuals involved in this, and if they said it's true, it is true. There's no actual proof yet at this point that this is for sure going on. So we're just scratching the surface of this. However, these type of attacks are very possible. And from a supply chain standpoint, that's really why I wanted to discuss this more. Not just from this may have actually happened and who knows what exactly has been exposed. It is still feasible. It's not science fiction. It's not, the NSA has even, part of the documents released from Snowden stated that NSA was doing this kind of stuff, where they were intercepting things in transit and then adding this information in, basically in the supply chain from manufacturer to recipient. They were getting it here in transport and actually putting hardware implants on the device. Not something that you can just rip out with a software update. And so we know this kind of thing is possible. And we know it's been done. Who all it's been done to, we don't know. Whether this one is actually accurate and it is actually being done by China on Supermicro server boards for Amazon and government and Apple, we don't know for sure that that's actually happening yet. But it is still a very feasible problem that we need to consider as part of a security model.
And if we've seen that our own the U.S. government has been caught doing this,
yes,
it's only to be expected that the other superpowers in the world also are going to be doing this.
Yeah,
and one of the most of our tech comes from China.
Exactly.
Well, maybe not for too much longer, because the cost of importing from China is skyrocketing. So, and there have already been companies that have gone out of business because they couldn't afford their raw supplies anymore.
Yep.
There's a PC case manufacturer who just recently closed up shop because they couldn't import their goods anymore. Well, they could, but they couldn't import their goods from China on a cost-effective scale.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so if they wanted to resume doing operations, they're going to have to, let's say, double the price of a case, and that would mean that somebody would have to pay $400 for a computer case instead of $200, which nobody would pay that.
Right,
So,
because it's just a case.
Yeah.
Especially when you can get on Amazon and buy one for $50.
Yeah.
What's this beef conversation?
What the? No beef stew. I don't know. I don't know what. Well, I know what beef stew is, but
Mr. Rock Freddy.
Yes, Mr. Rock Freddy. What would you like to tell us?
I think we found a troll.
well, I mean, if he's gonna give us beef stew,
I
like beef stew.
Thanks for the sub.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm good with beef stew. Have
Beef
some,
stew and
some
subs,
potatoes and vegetables in it.
You could have beef
Good
stew, get a sub from Subway, and then you'd have a sub and beef stew.
Ooh, and you could dip the sub into the stew.
That, especially if it's roast beef, that works.
Yeah.
Mike's over there like, what's wrong with you people? Here's your menus. All right.
Yeah, so Bloomberg had this as reported. So who, clearly if they have this information, somebody must have come up and mentioned it to a reporter.
Well, they said they have like a bunch of anonymous sources.
Yeah.
But
well, that only makes sense that you're not going to come out and say, this is my contact information.
Right.
Because
right.
Yeah.
So but it's one of those things, like, hopefully their sources are legitimate. I'm sure that Bloomberg would never try to do fake news or anything. But hopefully they're legitimate. But the idea that you could put a hardware chip the size of a piece of rice on there to do such a simple task, I mean, it's not a ridiculous idea. It could happen.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
They have system on chips that can do whatever you want them to.
Yeah.
So.
And that's why supply chain is something that needs to be considered as part of the threat model, because whether I think what's more so concerning about this particular story is if it's true, and China was doing this with Supermicro boards, This isn't something like with the NSA version where basically they were hitting it in transit. This is actually at the manufacturing company that this is being done.
Well,
How do you prevent that kind of thing, especially when all the specs that you're going off of based on the board are coming from them?
Yeah, you see, the NSA, they couldn't do this at the factory because Cisco was manufacturing them, I believe, in China, shipping them here, and so the NSA didn't have just the influence to be able to do this, so they had to find a different way around.
Secretly.
Yeah.
Do we know this, Mr. Rock Freddy?
The name does not sound familiar, but he's welcome anyways. I mean...
Yeah.
He's taking beverage orders. I ordered grape juice.
That's why I didn't know if this person was actually going to bring you guys drinks over there or something. That's why I was wondering if it's something somebody you guys know.
I mean, if somebody wants to come up here with some, grape juice and preferably something alcoholic from me, I'm good. Yeah.
Alcoholic grape juice, aka wine. I'm just kidding. I'm on call. I can't have alcohol.
Yeah, no, but I can.
That really sums up pretty much everything that I wanted to discuss, particularly this last portion in supply chain based attacks. I'm not sure if there's anything else you guys had, or if there's anything else you want to discuss about this.
Yeah, I can come up with a couple ideas. So Solar mentioned earlier in chat, Cortana was having problems, or
being weird.
Yeah, causing performance problems.
Realtek drivers too.
Realtek for the audio?
Yep, the audio drivers are causing similar issues.
Wow.
Mr. Rock Freddy says, so you want beer, Charlie?
Sure, yeah. I'll take beer. Huh. So yeah, it looks like Cortana had some issues fighting with the mouse driver. Mouse not moving, mouse lag.
So what do you do to fix it?
Looks like you go to your settings, devices, mouse and touchpads. Disable, re-enable. What?
Scroll inactive windows. That's
So
strange.
it's literally you disable and re-enable this option a couple times, and that should fix it.
So it's the turning off and turning it back on equivalent of the settings change.
Yeah, it's not even turn it off. No, it's turn it off and back on, and it should be fine.
Okay.
That's all sorts of special. Other options, you can go into the advanced and move the palm check threshold.
I mean, I guess that would be if you're using a touchpad, perhaps?
It sounds that way, yeah.
And if you're not using a touchpad, just shut it off. Why do you even need it?
Right. Yeah.
My favorite option.
I like solution number 4 the best, yep. Disable Cortana completely.
Solar Cloud said, I have a 1080 GTX hybrid graphics card, 2 4K monitors, and terrible mouse lag.
So that's a hell of a lot of hardware to do graphics rendering. He should not be having any lag.
Yeah, there should be no mouse lag.
Especially if you're literally just on your desktop. And granted, 2 4K displays is a lot of pixels, but...
Mike, do you want a drink?
Not with that much.
I saw Rock Freddy ask for that. I've already got a water, so I'm good, but you can bring Charlie more beer.
I always
bring
need more
Charlie
beer, yeah.
more beer.
Yep. So yeah, disable Cortana. Just get rid of the shit, because it's shit.
Disable NVIDIA high-def audio? Boy, there's a lot of weird things going on.
Yeah.
But maybe that's the problem. Uninstall the GeForce Experience app. After that, go to Device Manager, locate NVIDIA high definition audio, right-click it, and choose Disable. Interesting. But will that mess with it so you can't get HDMI? Some people want audio through their HDMI, so would that screw that up for you? I don't know.
Potentially.
Yeah.
That's why the best option...
Of course, who uses HDMI anymore, right? You got 2 4K monitors, you're probably using DPI. Or DP, sorry, DisplayPort.
Well, it's similar protocol.
Yeah, I guess.
Because DisplayPort just has embedded HDMI for the graphics with an upped frame rate.
More bandwidth, right?
Yeah. Same protocol otherwise though, but more or less. I mean,
Thanks for the drinks, Mr. Freddy.
so another thing I wanted to bring up, we're going on about an hour 15 of stream length. So granted that we were BSing around for about 20 minutes at the beginning. So
Never.
Oh, actually, more tech-related note. Somebody mentioned to me how on the news there was an article about car manufacturers and commercial vehicle manufacturers not giving the code to the ECM, or the electronic control module, or the core computer of the car. So the idea is that when you buy a vehicle, if you pay outright for the vehicle, you own it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have full access to it. You can do whatever you want to it. The caveat to that is that the software running inside the control module, you never buy. You are simply renting access to it for a given duration of time. Because it's software. And the user never buys the software controlling that.
That's funny.
They simply sign a license to allow them to use the software.
Right.
And that goes
Yes, you're
beyond.
correct. Only HDMI 2 supports 60 frames per second. I think it'll support up to 86 frames per second, whereas DP will support up to 133 hertz, or frames per second, not hertz. There's a difference there.
Yep.
Sorry. But yeah, most people probably don't have 2. They probably have like 1.3 or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what this laptop has.
But even dual-link DVI will support more than HDMI 1.3 or whatever it is.
Right.
That's HDMI. I'm not sure which one, though.
I don't know either. It has DisplayPort too, I think. Or maybe it doesn't. I don't know.
I don't think it does. Let's look at his peripherals. Oh, it does. It has a mini DisplayPort. Oh, neat.
Yeah. But the software thing goes more than just vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
Because every piece of software that you buy, you're not buying it. So if you pay $60 for a piece of software, you're not buying that software. You're simply paying $60 for a license to be able to use the boxed solution.
For an amount of time.
Yeah.
Which is not surprising. I mean, Adobe's doing that now with Photoshop. You don't buy Photoshop.
Well, you never did.
Right. But now you buy a subscription to it.
Right. It's,
So-
Well,
it's
and
always,
even Microsoft is looking at doing that for Windows now, too.
Yes.
Like, they're actually looking at doing Windows as a service. So basically, you don't even own the operating system for your computer. Basically, the only reason your computer does anything other than sit there and take up space on your desk is because you're paying Microsoft a monthly service.
well, you never bought Microsoft. You never
Well-
bought Windows.
True, but you basically bought the usage for the
You bought a
entire life of the
license
device.
to use
yeah,
it.
Right.
But instead of being a lifetime license,
yeah.
or
Now it's
whatever,
monthly
a lifetime of the
or
computer,
annual or whatever.
now it's month to month or year to year or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
you know, Office 365 is...
Yep.
Now, there are some advantages to that, though.
You get the latest version.
Every time. Right. So
Yep.
So if, 2007, my Office 2007, you want to upgrade because now it's 2016, you don't have to pay the $400 or whatever it might be for that.
Well, like for my business Office 365 accounts, I just got Office, 2019 or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever the latest one is. I haven't really played around to see what the new features are. It looks so much like 2016, but
Okay.
I mean,
so
I
great.
actually have it now.
So you can get the newest operating system for your computer
Mm-hmm.
every time they release it.
Without
Well, but-
having to pay extra.
Technically, Windows 10 is already that way
Right. That too.
Right.
because it's their endless release.
Yeah.
And basically they've went to the Ubuntu model, where on the third month of the year and the
10?
right? No.
Fourth.
Well, Ubuntu's is like 04 and 10.
Yeah.
Microsoft's was 03 and 09. like 1609 and 1603. So they were a month beforehand.
Okay.
They were, at least they were that month. That was the model they were using, but they didn't usually release until the following month. So it was still released in like April and October, but it was the 03 and 09 releases.
Except for this month because
They canceled it.
Windows made a boo-boo.
So that's
Yeah, they were.
that's interesting that Microsoft has switched to the canonical release model,
Yep.
and also Microsoft is releasing canonical source code in the OS.
Eventually, either Ubuntu is going to become Windows or Windows is going to become Ubuntu.
Yeah, I'm betting on
Solar
the
Cloud
Ubuntu.
says you can buy cheap licenses on eBay. It's a gamble I haven't lost yet, but I know my luck will run out someday. Yes, it will.
Yeah. Or
Also, looks like Mr. Rock Freddy dropped off the stream. He said he'd catch us next time. So,
okay.
see you next time, Freddy.
Bye, Freddy.
Or instead of paying for licensing.
Way to make sure that he feels awkward when he watches the rest of the stream.
Call me.
Hey, hang on, let me pull up Drew's number.
No!
It's going to go back to kind of what we were talking about with the airdrop thing.
Well, you can receive MS, so. Yeah. Other solutions, if you don't want to pay for software, just go with open source.
Yep.
Yay.
Because then you can actually own it. You do legitimately own the software, and if you want to modify it, you modify it. You
Raise
can
a
do that.
beer.
Yeah.
Don't want to pay for Microsoft Office? LibreOffice. Don't want to use Photoshop? GIMP. Although, you kind of have to install a suite of applications in order to replace Photoshop. But
Yeah.
Yeah, it does a lot currently, so.
GIMP does a lot, but it's not Photoshop.
Yeah. Then the only other remaining thing that I had was, since we're kind of tangenting to cars slightly, is squeakiness. When you hit the brakes and you hear squeaking.
Yeah. Like my
Replace
motorcycle's
your brake
doing.
pads.
Yeah. Yeah,
I need to replace the drums of my motorcycle.
That's something that you actually want to pay attention to.
Oh, really? Tell us why.
Where'd my mouse go?
Oh, no.
Charlie, and for the audience's perspective here, and for yours as well, Drew, because I don't know if you know this, Charlie is notoriously bad at paying attention to his brakes. Because I remember one time about 8-ish years ago, where I was living at, he actually had to turn around and back up because he hit the brakes and it was a 55-mile-an-hour zone, and he did not stop fast. He did not start hitting the brakes fast enough. His brakes were so worn down that he just kind of slowly cruised past the driveway and had to back up and go back in.
Probably, yeah.
And also, Charlie is also a car guy as much as he is a tech. So the fact that he doesn't pay attention to this is just bad.
Well, I pay attention, I just procrastinate.
Yeah, well, yeah, I see.
So, let me start it on a half-decent one. Oh, that works. So I finally got around to picking up some new brake pads, because I noticed that my brakes had started to squeak, but they weren't too bad. But then I started a trip, a 3-hour trip, or 150 miles, and halfway between there, they went from being okay to just completely shitting out.
Okay.
So that was also the other problem. So
that usually doesn't just happen.
yeah, so I got halfway there, it failed. So I had to get the rest of the halfway and all the way back. So that was a fun trip. But I decided to be a little creative when I was replacing them, and actually took pictures of the parts. So Mike, I'm not sure.
Ah, look,
Yeah,
it's a rotor.
You'll be able to see them. Yeah, but it's a very rusted rotor, and I think that might be the better of the two, or maybe not.
Looks like there's quite a bit of grooves in there, too.
Yeah, so the pad actually disintegrated on the road.
Oh, wow.
So
Oh,
here's-
wow.
Yeah. So I have, at the bottom is the inside pad, and the top is the outside pad. And as you can see, there's no braking material left.
Right.
So that
it's all gone.
entire wafer just completely disintegrated.
Wow.
Yeah.
It actually looks like there's a crack in the other one too.
Yeah, that one's starting to crack as well. And then clearly the new ones, the replacements, are beside them. And you can see they have a good quarter, not quite half
Usually around
inch.
a quarter-inch thick.
Yeah.
I just actually replaced the brake pads on the front of the front wheels of my truck. I think I've actually got a bad wheel bearing I need to fix too, which that'll be an adventure.
Ooh, there's a little difference between those two.
Yep. And that was the better of the two. Then I got to the other side. Oh yeah, it's a close-up of him. Okay, that's a close-up of the actual
Ooh.
disc. Yeah.
Did you change that?
Yes. I got new discs or new rotors for the car too.
Oh, that's rough, man.
Well, it's an old car.
I've seen worse, but yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't mind replacing them, replacing the entire system. Yeah. And then the new shiny one.
Ooh.
A little bit of a difference.
Machined.
Yeah. So this is on the driver's side, and so this was the better inner or outer pad. But as you can see, the graphite, metallic, whatever the braking material is usually stuck to the metal housing a little better.
That's typically what you want.
Yeah. But
So not only is there a crack in that one, it's completely like disconnected from the pad holder.
Yes. Yeah. Which
I'm surprised it didn't just fly out of there.
Well, that's basically what the passenger side did.
Yeah, I mean, at least.
Usually when I've seen that, they've just ground all the way to nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's usually what happens, but there's some residual bits of the pad left, but in this case, the pad just entirely separated from the housing. So if I hadn't replaced it within time, the driver's side would have started doing the same thing.
That's definitely new. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, it was... They were due for replacement. So if your car starts squeaking, have somebody look at it.
Can you stop like that?
Yes.
No way. Really? That's
Yeah.
Not very effectively, but yes.
Yeah. So my car is old enough that the front is disc brake and the back are drum.
Drum, right.
So if the front brakes completely fail, you still have an entirely different braking system that's a lot more reliable. Granted, it's not as effective.
Right.
And so these will stop your car very quickly. The drums, they'll eventually stop your car.
Eventually.
Gravity will eventually stop your car.
Friction.
Gravity and friction.
Friction.
Yeah. So that's what I was
Solid objects.
Yeah, so I was just relying on the drums in the back, basically, for stopping power. But yeah, it's certainly not the safest thing. And if I had a little more notice, I wouldn't have done the trip, but it worked.
Well, and usually when your stuff starts squeaking, that gives you time. You know, okay, I'm squeaking. I gotta get this changed soon. You don't expect it to fly apart on your next trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like my motorcycle's been squeaking, and I know I gotta change the back brakes.
Yeah.
But 90% of your braking power comes from the front brakes, so I'm not like terribly concerned about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Plus, I don't want to change it because drum brakes are a bitch. But
Yes, they are.
it is what it is.
But yeah, when the pad completely just disintegrates, you
notice right away, I bet.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Ah, shit! We're all gonna die.
You'll have fun while you're careening to your death, though. So, those were my two little tidbits for the evening. Anything you wanted to add, or any comments?
No, I think we covered quite a bit.
Okay.
Good discussions tonight.
Even though it was a relatively quiet week, I
I just want to go home and play with Hack This Box. Or Hack the Box.
It's fun. It's a good time.
I feel it's also more effective or more beneficial for you as a person than Capital Adventure Time. Or
Yeah,
whatever
Shut
it's
up!
called.
That's a fun game. Adventure Capitalist.
Whatever.
Capital Adventure Time.
Oh, which is still running, it looks like. Okay.
Of course it is. How am I going to get my derivative clicking if it isn't running?
And on that note,
Yep.
till next time.
Yep. Have fun and stay safe out there on the ever-changing interwebs. And until next week.
Thanks, everybody.